I could also do that.
Yeah, like after school or something.
Right, or like sometime tomorrow.
Sunday. Oh.
Yeah. Today I said before 4.
Yeah.
Or maybe before 1, but I could do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to get this finished,
yes,
and we'll see from there.
But if you need more time, we can do that.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yes.
that. So I'm looking over like the questions I prepared for you.
Okay.
One of them was, were you ever misdiagnosed? And you already answered that.
Yes.
Did they ever like diagnose you with just like, I feel like I remember you talking something about like depression, like just depression, is that right?
Yeah, so then when I went to like a therapist in college, so like after the whole high school ordeal, they at first were like, it sounds like you have like major depressive disorder. I think that's it, right? Is that the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Major depressive and like generalized anxiety.
Okay.
And so that's what they first described it as. And then from there we started workshopping that kind of diagnosis a little bit, because my therapist was like, oh, you kind of describe like having cycles, which isn't really a normal thing for like depressive disorders and things like that. And I was like, yeah, it's just like, it feels like the best way to put it into words. It's like a cycle where it's like I feel fine, I feel on top of everything, the next thing I know, like I crash, and then like I feel normal, and then like she was like, oh, that's a little weird too, and I was like, no, it's not, but yeah,
Wrong.
I actually like didn't believe her for a while.
Wow.
I like when she told me that, she was like, I think you might have bipolar. I was like, okay, like whatever, you're just making that up. Like, I was like, I'm not looking for like a really complicated diagnosis. So that made me start questioning myself. I was like, am I saying things that are like driving a certain diagnosis? So that's something I was always worried about, is I never wanted to get like misdiagnosed again. And then also my family's just really big on like kind of not being medicated if you don't need to. So that was like a big thing, was like, you don't want a diagnosis for things and stuff like that. So I was always very avoidant of getting them. And I was like, I don't want to mislead her, and I don't want to like have her think that I have this issue, and I really don't, because I don't want like the attention of it and things like that. And then what actually made me come to the realization that I actually might be bipolar was surprisingly TikTok.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people, like, for some reason, somehow I got on like the bipolar side of TikTok. Don't know how I ended up there, but like it was a ton of people like posting about their experiences of being bipolar, and it was like, hey, like I had this happen to me, and I was like, damn, I relate to that so much. Like, it makes so much sense. And they're like, hey, if you relate to this, you probably have bipolar. And I was like, you're lying. But like I kept getting so many, and they all were like personally relatable. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe there is a problem there. Maybe I'm not making this up, because I think it's within the comfort of my own home. It's just me watching these videos. Like, there's no performance aspect of it. Like, it's just me by myself. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe there is something there. But then I went to see a psychiatrist, and like I kind of told her about it. And once again, I didn't really know how to describe hypomaniacs. I didn't really know it was a thing. And so I was like, yeah, I have these days where like sometimes I feel like really like self-confident, like to a point that's not normal for me. Like I just like, it's a really kind of elevated, but it's not necessarily egotistical, but it's higher than I normally would experience. And she's like, well, how long does this go on for? And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe a day or two. She's like, not bipolar, it has to be longer than that. And I was like, okay, like I don't know any better. You're a licensed professional, I'm not gonna question you. But yeah, because then...
Was this at CSU?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I later heard that she was fired. So last time I went in there, like for rescheduling for psychiatry, they checked my notes and they saw that she was my psychiatrist, and they apologized. They're like, we're so sorry that you had her. She was awful. And so...
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really notice. I was kind of just going with the flow.
That'll throw a whole wrench in the whole diagnosis.
Right? It would, because she was like, no. And I was like, okay. It's like, I told you my therapist was lying.
See, I knew it.
See, I knew. I was right the whole time. But, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, okay. And then you said, like, then you were... And I'm assuming this is through CSU when they diagnosed you with bipolar disorder.
Yes.
You like met with someone.
Yes, a different psychiatrist through CSU.
Gotcha.
Really
Okay, I'm gonna check real quick.
okay. I keep itching my nose.
I know. I'm like, I keep like wanting to like.
I feel like a coke addict. I'm not. I've never done coke. Never done cocaine. But I keep like.
I keep like, you know, feeling it from the bedroom.
I keep feeling it in my nostrils. Like I gotta get it out somehow.
I've never done it.
But I've never done coke before. Never. I'm like scratching. I'm like. Never. Never.
Oh my god. So okay, so my other question was, what did you think? How about like when you were, you went to go, to get therapy or for psychiatry, you know what I mean? So you obviously knew something. Like I need some help regulating whatever this is. Is that what it was? Did you think it was like, oh, I just have to, I'm just depressed, I just have depression? Was it that, or it doesn't sound like you thought you had bipolar disorder?
Yeah, it was weird because I definitely knew that there was something to do with depression, for sure. But I also didn't fully agree with having just normal depression, if that makes sense. Okay. Because they don't really describe depression as cyclic, or having really having ups and then having downs. Mm-hmm. It's not really described as such. It's mostly kind of either better days or worse days. And there was days that I just wasn't depressed, and then I also felt maybe I'm faking it. Maybe I've convinced myself that I am depressed and I'm actually not, and I'm just doing this for some subconscious fulfillment or whatever reason. So it was really hard to articulate what I was feeling. Because once again, without the extreme mania, there wasn't really a solid groundwork to be oh yeah, that's bipolar. It was a lot more subtle.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it just made it difficult to describe what I was experiencing because I didn't understand it myself, and then I just kind of let the people around me influence what I said rather than trying to articulate what I was feeling. So it's really weird. It was odd.
Okay. And I know that bipolar disorder has a pretty strong correlation, not absolutely, but a correlation for sure about it running in the family. And it sounds because you haven't seen it, or that you knew of someone having bipolar disorder around you growing up. Is that true, or do you know anyone in your family? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. For sure. Nobody, I would say, in my immediates, my parents or my sister, I would say none of them really express the same symptoms that I was expressing. The only person I could really think of would be my paternal grandmother. Okay. But there's a lot of things going on with her, so it's really hard to narrow down what it could be. But she has these what feels more violent mood swings of she's either your best friend, she wants to hang out all the time, or then she's shunning you for some reason, and she's very back and forth on a lot of things. And it's just I'm not super close with her, so it's not really easy for me to monitor or observe her moods, but just the instability kind of seems familiar, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. But she was never formally diagnosed or anything like that. Gotcha. Okay. And then as from your current standpoint, do you, since you know that this is bipolar disorder, do you have a way of tracking episodes or the swings? Is it more someone, I remember in class someone did a presentation on bipolar disorder. They were TA for psychopathology. Okay. And they have bipolar disorder. I believe it's type 1. Okay. But they showed us these graphs. I don't know what app they were using or if it was just they chose to graph it, but it was these 3 graphs in between the 3 years, and it was these specific months was in the depressive episode, and these specific weeks were in mania. So I'm wondering, I don't know why, again, I don't know why quite she was tracking that, if she was doing it for a specific reason, but I'm just wondering if that was anything for you.
Yeah, so to answer the question of if I track it, I do informally. I don't have as aggressive of a system as graphing everything out and things like that, but I do more just take mental note rather than actually write something down. So I've gotten to the point where I've gotten pretty familiar with the symptoms that I express when I'm about to go either hypermanic or depressive or just kind of evening out. And so for example, when I'm hypermanic, I notice that I get a lot more kind of anal about cleaning. Okay. And I get very particular about how clean my apartment is, or how clean my room is, or how caught up on laundry I am. And then I almost can't function until that's all like solved.
Okay.
And so then I noticed, and then I have to like have upkeep of it too. Like if it can't slip, or else I will also go like get a little upset and have to like go back and fix everything. And like I noticed I'm a lot more driven to like do schoolwork and stuff like that. Like I have a lot more motivation, but almost to the point of like kind of obsessive rather than like, oh, I need to get this done, blah blah blah. Like I'll take a break when I do it. Like if I'm hypomanic and like ready to get something done, I'm like, I have to do this right now, however long it takes. Like I have to. And so it's a little odd, a little bit like have to get this done. And then as soon as I start slipping into the depressive, it's like lack of motivation starts appearing. Like my room is always a great signal for what stage I am in mentally, because if it's super clean, like neat freak, it's like the hypomanic. And if it's super messy, laundry all over the place, like trash, like kind of not in trash cans, I'm like depressive. And if it's kind of like a normal between the two, it's like the normal phase. So in a way, like my room is how I track things, because like by the state of my room and how I feel about it is like kind of indicates to me where I'm at.
Okay.
So yeah.
What do like the time frame look like?
Yeah.
Or does it vary?
Definitely does. I wouldn't say it's like always a solid, like the same amount of time all the time, but I do notice my cycles are a lot shorter than like what most people describe. Because a lot of people will describe like being manic for like a month, or like being depressive for a couple months. For me, I noticed that like my manic episodes last about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And my depressive are a little longer. I usually see it as like 3 weeks to a month.
Okay. And then we talked about what, like, when you were on the SSRI, that like really intense like manic episode. What does hypomania look like for you now? Not obviously on the SSRI.
Yeah, kind of ties back into like the indicators I was telling you about.
Okay.
But hypomania to me is actually usually a good thing. Like I have learned to enjoy it because it's like my most productive state. It's like my most cleanly state. It's like I try to take advantage of it to like to the fullest extent that I can, because I understand that what's about to come is about me being depressive and not being super well functioning. So if I can kind of prep for that using the hypomania to my advantage. But yeah, it's honestly really like kind of enjoyable for the sake of, it's like, wow, I feel like I'm productive. I feel like I can get things done. Like my room's clean. It feels good to have it clean. Like my dishes are done on time. They don't sit in the sink for a while. Like it is like in a way like nice, but also there are some downsides. Like I am extremely irritable when I am hypomanic, for sure. I get really irritable about like everything. It's like the slightest things piss me off. Like I have really bad road rage when I'm hypomanic, hypomanic, not hyper, hypomanic, or just like certain things that would slightly bother me when like in a normal or depressive stage will really get on my nerves. So, like for example, I'm really sensitive to how people chew. If they kind of chew with their mouth open, it'll kind of upset me a little bit. I'm like, I have to like either move away or just like tolerate it and hope they're done eating soon. But if I'm hypomanic, it will be like grinding my teeth together, like, because I like clenching my jaw as hard as I can. I'm like angry about it. I'm like, if I don't hold my tongue, I will yell at this person to like stop chewing like that. And so it's just like more heightened, kind of like of that irritability a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember in class we were talking about how like people with bipolar disorder, I mentioned like when they're in hypomania or in the manic state, they're like, I'm not really having a bad time. Like I don't know why you guys doctors are being like, oh my god, we went through an episode or something. Right. You're like, I'm kind of chilling. But sometimes it can be very what's the word? Like dysfunctional and upsetting. Right.
Like I had so much fun when I was fully manic. But then realizing afterwards was the not fun part. It was like coming to terms with like the things that I did. I was like, oh, that's not cool. And I had to like go back and like talk to people and be like, yo, so sorry you had to experience that. My bad. But at the time I really did not see anything wrong with it. And I was like, perfect. I'm solving all of my problems right now.
Wow.
And it's all taken care of. And I don't have to worry about a thing. And then afterwards I was like, oh God, what have I done?
So was that when you back to that time? It was mania and then it was or was it like
I wouldn't say it's like a super hard drop.
Yeah.
But like it definitely goes like in the drop.
Yeah.
I like to track it. It's like a heartbeat. Like have you ever seen like an EKG?
Yeah.
Where it's like the dun dun dun
Yeah.
and then it fly and it
Yeah.
goes like that. That's like how I picture my like bipolar cycles. Is that like I have my manic,
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
where it's like except for me it would be like lower on here and deeper here.
Lower. Here, do you want to draw?
Yeah. So
Right
like
here.
I'll put it like right here.
Yeah.
So like this is like a visual representation. Is I feel like if like this was like the normal where it goes like up and then it goes like whoosh, and then it like whoosh, and then it goes
Oh.
oop, not alive during that period. But there's like also a bigger gap. I just was so determined on drawing these peaks. But,
Okay.
but like
Gotcha.
that's like how I like to describe it to people.
Okay.
It's like if I had to put it visually, this is what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that depressive periods, like what? This might be a hard question to answer, but like, what's more severe?
Mm-hmm. Definitely the depression.
Depression.
For sure. That's another thing I like to describe to people because I think that's one of the major differences between 1 and 2
Okay.
is that like when I like to compare between 1, I'm like if this is a baseline right here, middle, 1 is like even. Like both the manic and the depressive are relatively like the same severity.
Okay.
But then with type 2 it's like shifted down.
Okay.
So it's like the manic isn't nearly as bad as it would be in type 1.
Okay.
But I've always heard the depressive is worse.
Okay.
It's a little more aggressive.
Gotcha. Let me check. We're still filming.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And so that's what I've heard. Could be spreading misinformation, but I don't. Not
She's
intentionally.
spreading misinformation.
Not intentionally. It's just what my psychiatrist told me.
Gotcha. We didn't really talk, like we mentioned
Yeah.
type 1 and type 2, but they didn't really go that far in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here for today.
Okay.
I think that would be
Cool.
a good idea.
Sounds good.